Next, we have the valedictory address given this year by class valedictorian Noah Burkham.
Head of School Levinson, Board of Trustees, administrators, faculty, family, and friends. Good afternoon. It is my honor to address you as we, the class of 2021, stand poised to receive our diplomas and bid adieu to Big Blue. In preparing today's address to the graduating class, I searched my soul and YouTube in equal measure. As the days grew longer and the nights grew shorter, all 10 of them since the Senior Awards Assembly last week, I replayed in my mind a host of commencement addresses that I had been binge-watching, from the billionaire celebrities saying, "Follow your dreams," to the snarky comedians parodying them, to the young valedictorians who found creative ways to go viral. I noticed how each speech focused on lessons learned outside of the classroom, lessons about finding camaraderie, overcoming failure, discovering passions. It made sense. The commencement address, as a genre, focuses on the real world. It is meant to school us in ways that our formal education does not, and perhaps cannot. There's a disconnect, to be sure, between the classroom and reality, but it's a disconnect with which we all are familiar, whether we know it or not. You may have heard of that infamous trope called the ivory tower, a tongue-in-cheek metaphor for how academic institutions act as these secluded bubbles of intellectual discourse. From their august vantage point, academics supposedly look down on life below the troposphere and exchange ideas that lack any real-world currency. In a sense, you, my fellow graduates, have already had a taste of the ivory tower at Pingry. From two-column proofs to the trolley problem, from literary criticism to the conservation of momentum, you've spent the past 4 years engaging in mental exercises about abstract, unrealistic models. You've learned to recite rules, formulas, and equations with the aplomb of wizards casting spells, incantations, and divinations. In this process of learning for its own sake, the first thing you learned is just how easy it is to sound smart. All you need to do is parrot long, esoteric terms like quadratic, transcendentalism, and mitochondria. What was much harder, you learned, was to actually convey understanding. There came a day when you arrived home from school and your parent asked you what you learned, and you couldn't explain it without defining 10 other terms and putting them to sleep. That, my friends, is where common knowledge ends and the ivory tower begins. Today, I want to talk to you about the perils of the ivory tower. I want to stress to you the importance of humility as you pursue your specialization and as you find your community of fellow experts. And I want to show you that the ivory tower is not the end point, that you should strive to maintain flexibility in how you think, write, and speak. When I first learned about the ivory tower, I was a bit taken aback. I always thought of education as a pursuit that makes us more open-minded and mentally adaptable. I took inspiration from Vsauce, John Green, and Sal Khan, people who use the internet platform to make learning more accessible. I found that heroic. The ivory tower, on the other hand, made education seem futile and elitist. It went against the model of accessibility, and it made me feel like the more I learned and the more I absorbed complexity, the more out of touch I would become as a communicator. And in a way, that's kind of what happened. Or at least, from that point on, I was more aware of my deficiencies whenever I gave a presentation that fell flat, or I tried to help my siblings with science homework, only to leave them with a bigger headache. I felt like I had developed a Midas touch with words, but it wasn't gold I was creating. It was ivory, brittle ivory. The fact of the matter is, communication does inexorably get harder as you learn more. Developing an expertise is like learning a new language. The difference is that people often think speaking this expert language in and of itself reflects some kind of deeper intelligence or worth. But it doesn't. Just because you can recite the cost curves for a perfect competition market doesn't mean you can run a company. Just because you studied constitutional law inside and out doesn't mean you are qualified to become a Supreme Court justice. Knowing facts is wholly different from effectively applying them. And sounding smart is, unfortunately, not an academic achievement. So please, don't conflate your lingo with your ego. Doing so only exacerbates the elitism of the ivory tower in the most superfluous of ways. Unfortunately, no matter how self-aware we are, there are inevitable side effects to specialization. As we gain expert knowledge, we lose touch with simplicity, and we surround ourselves, often by necessity, with those who think and speak like us. We ultimately join the ivory towers we sought to destroy. My parting advice to you is to embrace a modified metaphor, an ivory elevator. Yes, an elevator. And this elevator represents my sincerest hope that as we become educated members of society, we can find mobility between lofty intellectualism and common pragmatism, that we can interact as fruitfully with our fellow experts as we can with the general public. Class of 2021, I wish you nothing but the best. In the past 4 years, you all have inspired me with your dynamic personalities, your dynamite curiosity. Don't let anyone or anything take that dynamism away from you. And as you embark on this next chapter of your lives, I implore you to engage with complexity as well as simplicity. Make yourselves heard throughout the ivory halls and beyond. Reach for the stars, and when the time comes, take the elevator back down to earth. Thank you, and congratulations.